Welcome back to Root Double, everybody. I apologize there was not an episode on Friday, so yeah. Here we are, we're running away from Yukita and the others because they've basically gone mad trying to, the group has basically been split apart. It's pretty crazy. Everyone's just kind of at their wits' end.
そうね。だから、私があの二人を説得してくるわ。
Convince them.
まさか一人で行くつもりか。
当たり前でしょ。あなたが一緒に来たりしたら話がややこしくなるだけだわ。
Yeah, no one trusts Watasi right now. Ina's the only one who actually believes in us.
それはそうかもしれないが。
すぐに戻ってくるから。ここで待ってて。
No sooner had Ina said that than Watasi felt the anxiety and those heart rapidly spread.
いや待て先生、それは危険だ。
え？
あいつらは銃の一件で先生に対してもかなり疑心を抱いている。
No, that's true. She had a gun with her. No one knows why.
今出て行ったら何されるかわからないぞ。
でも、だったらどうすればいいのよ。
I don't know.
こんな状況じゃ AD も要救助者も脱出口も捜索できないでしょ。
That's true. We gotta do something.
私がみんなを説得しなきゃどうにもならないじゃない。
The situation did indeed look hopeless. Even if they could persuade Joan and Yukita, that wouldn't change the fact that they didn't have enough AD. Everyone would be exposed to radiation in just another hour. They'd struggle as hard as they could for the last 5 hours, but in the end... Now that I think about it, we haven't solved any of our problems. They hadn't found the survivors, to say the least, of Yuri. She wandered off somewhere, and we have no idea where she is. Someone with a gun could be hiding down there with them. His once trusted allies now saw him as their enemy.
だが、説得ができなくても、みんなが生き延びられる方法があればいい。
そりゃそうよ。でも、そんなのあると思う？
He didn't. All normal methods were impossible. If there had been a way, then they would have done it ages ago. But what have we been thinking about this the wrong way the whole time? Is there a method that we haven't thought of yet? If it means running into a danger we've avoided up until now, or putting my own life on the line, if I'm prepared for that, then what's the first method I can do? Words that he had heard a while back replayed themselves in Watasi's head.
どうやら原子炉のある N エリアで今も大規模な火災が続いているらしく、そのためにセキュリティシステムが暴走し外部からアクセスできなくなっているそうなんだ。
We had an epiphany. A wide smile that spontaneously adorned his cheeks.
どうしたの？
Watasi answered Ina's puzzled question with a subdued voice.
先生、思いついたよ。すべてを解決する方法を。
え？
答えは一番最初に出ていたんだ。全員助ける方法を俺はとっくに知っていたんだよ。
どういうこと？だったらなんでそれを隠していたのよ。
Watasi put his index finger to his lips. Ina went quiet with a start.
あまり大声を上げちゃダメだ。森部たちに知られたら終わりだ。
本当にそんな方法があるのね。
ああ、先生だけには教えてやるが、ちょっと耳を貸してくれ。
Ina walked up to Watasi in surprise. He then brought his mouth to her ear.
いいか先生、その方法ってのは俺が命を捨てるってことだ。
And whispered those decisive words. Ina's eyes widened. Watasi then slipped behind her and got her in a chokehold. Watasi paid no attention to Ina's pained grunts and kept squeezing her neck.
どうして？
ごめんな。教えたら先生、俺を止めるだろう。だから悪いけど、ここで少し眠っていてくれ。
Before long, strength left Ina's body. Watasi laid her on the floor.
何をしてるんだ。
Shut up, voice. I know what I'm doing. It's what I had to do. He heard the auditory hallucination echo through his head again. It no longer even surprised him. So he paid no heed to it and left the room. Oh god. Oh. Watasi destroyed the door opening mechanism located right next to the door once he left the room. There, they can't get in. This way, the Moribeg and the old man can't get into the room and Teach will be safe. The auditory hallucination then returned with a vengeance.
おい答えろ。なぜ先生を気絶させた。お前何をしようとしてるんだ。
I really must be a lunatic if I'm going to actually answer an auditory hallucination. Watasi laughed bitterly, then answered the hallucination.
モリベたちを説得するなんて意味がない。何しろもうあと1時間しかないんだ。
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
だがそれでも皆を助ける方法が一つだけある。
Watasi took a security card out of his pocket. It was the level N card that the dead girl had on her. The only key that would open the door to Area N.
司令長が言っていた。N エリアで火災が続いていて、それでセキュリティシステムが暴走していると。だったら N エリアの火災を消しさえすれば、セキュリティシステムの暴走は止まり、隔壁も開けられるはず。
まさかお前一人で N エリアに行くつもりか。
Well, the question is, how are we going to survive it? I mean, that is like the heart of the radiation. We wouldn't last.
そのまさかさ。
The melted down nuclear reactor was in Area N. The radiation filling that area was no doubt off the charts compared to what they were faced with out here. But in spite of that, Watasi still managed to force a smile. So what? What he truly feared wasn't death. It was powerlessness. To watch everything come to an end, helpless to stop it. With that thought in mind and his destination set, Watasi started walking off. The auditory hallucination then began to shout desperately at him.
やめろバカ、死ぬぞ。燃える原子炉の火をたった一人で消せるわけがないだろう。仮に消火できたとしても被爆は免れないんだぞ。
I'm already exposed to radiation. That voice had guided Watasi many a time up until now, even though he didn't know if it was his ally or his enemy. So when Watasi once again heard that voice no one else knew of, he defied it.
すまん。今回ばかりはお前の言うことは聞けない。誰かがやらなきゃダメなんだよ。皆で5時間以上頑張って今こんなざまなんだから。
Nowhere. If anything, it got us in a deeper hole.
そんなに死にたいのか。みんなを助けるためなら死んじまってもいいってのか。
I think he seems to forget that Watasi is a rescue worker. Dying is just an occupational hazard. The voice was growing louder and angrier. Watasi answered it with a wry smile.
お前にはわかんないかな。別に俺は死にたいわけじゃない。ただ皆を助けたいだけなんだよ。
どうしてそうまでして。
This was the second time he'd been asked that today.
どうしてそうまでして私を救おうとしたりするんですか。
Watasi fondly remembered that question. It was from a time when the group had worked together to find a way to survive. A time before they were overtaken by discord. Watasi quietly muttered the answer he hadn't given back then.
俺は人を助けることだけをずっと考えてきたんだ。お前に有利を助けろって言われたあの時からな。
Without any memories of the past, these few hours he'd spent here in LABO were Watasi's entire life. And the few memories he had recovered had been of LABO too. This dark underground facility was the only world he knew. Maybe he could have made a different choice if he were living peacefully. But Watasi had awoken in this facility consumed by radiation, all while bearing the burden of his role as a rescue squad captain.
だから俺はその役目を全うしたいだけなんだよ。火や爆風や煙に覆われて無力な自分に腹を立てながらよ。AD が足りなくなりゃガスの中にも汚染区域にも飛び込んで誰かが穴に落っこちたら手掴んで引っ張り上げて有利が瓦礫に潰されそうになれば身を挺してかばってそうして皆を助けることだけをずっと考えてきたんだよ。
The voice went quiet. It wasn't surprising. There was no one out there who could understand Watasi's feelings. He was an entity who'd suddenly been born into this hellish environment without any memories. He didn't know who he was, only that he was a spirit bestowed with the sole duty of saving lives. That was him. That was Watashi Kasasagi. The wounds he'd gained in the process of fulfilling that duty suddenly began hurting. His burnt left hand, his cracked ribs, the cut on the back of his head. His throat felt like it was on fire from thirst and all the vomiting he'd done, and his body was as heavy as lead from all the exhaustion he'd built up. And yet he did not stop. For his will was the only thing that he could rely on now that he didn't even trust himself. That's right. They may not trust us, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna let those people die for no reason.
俺が行動しなかったせいで全員が命を落とすのも同じことだ。原子炉の火を消すことで皆が救われるならそうしよう。その結果
Even if I lose my life as a result. Perhaps the auditory hallucination figured what he was thinking, as it spoke up in a faint voice.
分かったろ。分かったらもう黙っていてくれ。これ以上話すと決心が鈍りそうだ。
Watashi muttered that and broke off into a run. He headed for Area N, home of the burning reactor. Oh, what's going to happen? Watashi's program started beeping louder than he'd ever heard it before when he opened connecting passageway gate to Area N. The Procion's display was giving off a reading far greater than he'd ever seen before. Oh my god. That's a lot of numbers. He was assaulted by an intense headache and severe nausea. His skin was numb and his vision grew blurry. Watashi turned on his Procreon off and then kept on walking. The nuclear reactors right behind this gate. A melted down reactor, raging hellfire, and extremely lethal doses of radiation. Watashi shuddered as he imagined the hell on earth waiting for him right up ahead. But we're ready. We've prepared for this for hours. I figured we'd have to go into the heart of the beast at some point. Watashi kept himself from shaking, then pulled a hose out from the nearby fire hydrant. He held it with his left hand with the security guard on the right. Extinguishing preparations all set. Let's roll. Though genuine danger lay just up ahead, Watashi did not falter. Endless courage was coursing through him. He suddenly broke out into a smile. Looks like I finally became a true rescue worker. He then took his card in his hand. And opened the gate. At that moment, he felt as if he'd stepped into a raging storm. An invisible force broke over his body with earth-shattering power. Yet Watashi stood his ground and opened his eyes. Then saw what lay on the other side of the gate. Watashi gasped in the face of that sight. Standing on the other side of the door was a gigantic hall filled with the faint sound of running machinery. Now where's all the fire? There was supposed to be a melted down nuclear reactor here. There were supposed to be fires causing the security system to go haywire there. Yet all I saw was a cold, empty room. What's going on? I don't get it. Watashi threw the hose aside and looked around. A transparent cylinder stood in the center of Area N, surrounded by 6 towering, spire-like installations. Those installations all connected to each other near the ceiling, forming a hexagram. Watashi staggered over to that device. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really know what a nuclear reactor looked like. But he had a bad feeling that what he was looking at was no nuclear reactor. Watashi strained his brain to remember the words he'd seen earlier. Let's see. The words in the search list were Case N, meltdown, brain dysfunction, subject N, WX particle, particle amplifier, WX particle spread? I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. He finally realized what had been the source of that uncomfortable feeling he'd gotten back then. Though K-Sen and Meltdown had shown up on that list, terms that should have been there weren't. There had not been a single sign of the terms nuclear reactor, radiation, radioactive material, or radiation exposure. Instead, there were mysterious terms like WX particle and particle amplifier. It was clearly strange, but Tassi couldn't explain it. However, he felt the answers lied in this room.
火災が起きてないってだけじゃない。もしかしてここには原子炉自体存在しないんじゃないのか。
But Tassi's shout was full of astonishment.
どういうことだ。俺たちは騙されていたのか。誰に何の目的で。
His confusion begot more questions. He felt he had heard the same words being screamed at some point in the past. Did the commander lie to us? But why would he ever do that? No. The ones I should be doubting are the staff of LABO. So does that include Old Man Yukita too? From what Tassi had seen from how everyone had acted, it seemed the entire city believed that LABO housed a nuclear reactor. And then why did the people running LABO lie about it? What was the meaning? What meaning was there in putting on such an elaborate ruse to fool the townspeople? Well, Tassi's head hurt again when he thought about that. It had felt far worse than any of his other headaches. All his wounds and skin also began to hurt at the same time. To make matters worse, his body started shaking for no apparent reason. Wait, are these convulsions? He frantically looked around, hoping to find an exit, but instead he spotted a strange object. What is that, like a controller of some sort? Something was lying on the ground further up ahead. He staggered over to it and picked it up. It was a security card that had split into two. The name on the card was Miyoko Tenkawa. The security level was level N. Just then, an unpleasant stench suddenly took hold of Watassi's nose. It was a familiar stench, albeit 100 times worse than any past experience he'd dealt with. The stench of blood. A bad feeling rose in Watassi's heart as he took a look behind the device. Oh my god. Oh no. He's dead. He's dead. The boy garbed in the school uniform was lying there. His body was collapsed in a pool of spreading blood. Isn't that Natsuhiko Tenkawa? His name and face matched up perfectly with Watassi's memory of him. But Natsuhiko did not respond to his calls. Watassi took off his gloves and pressed his index finger against Natsuhiko's carotid artery. He couldn't feel a pulse, and Natsuhiko's body was cold. Watassi frantically laid Natsuhiko flat on the floor and began CPR. Just do it like Tachibana Morbi did. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. No reaction. God damn it! God damn it! Watassi desperately continued to perform CPR while fighting off his headache and convulsions. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. Please don't die. Soon enough, Watassi felt a faint pulse. We brought him back. Watassi pressed his hand against Natsuhiko's mouth and felt the boy's breath. But that didn't change the fact that he had a nigh fatal wound. It'd be a miracle if he survived it with that much blood. But why is he bleeding so bad to begin with? Watassi looked over at Natsuhiko's body and found there were several small holes and wounds here and there behind his uniform. The sight of them no longer shocking as Watassi has seen so many of them before. Just then he noticed something lying next to Natsuhiko. The gun. He felt the object's heavy weight pass through his arms when he picked it up. It was different than the one Ina had, but it was undoubtedly a pistol. Someone didn't want us finding out the truth, and he paid for it. Watassi groaned in shock, but at that moment... a mysterious fear flared up in him. The monster looked at him and laughed. At that moment, just as an indescribable fear sent shivers down his spine, he was assaulted by an intense pain akin to his brain being crushed. I wonder who he's fighting. The man screamed, faced with an agony unlike anything he'd ever felt before.
今のはまさかお前も頭の中を。
His well-toned body proved helpless in the face of that power. You damn monster! In spite of that, he struggled against it, attempting to complete his mission nevertheless. His will broke as the overwhelming pain surged through his head once more. He staggered backwards, clutching his head. The monster's face warped sinisterly, its gaze piercing right through him. He then fled without looking back. If he stood his ground, he'd be killed, annihilated. And so he held his throbbing head as he ran for his life. I have to get away, as far as possible. He had to retreat to a place where the monster's power couldn't reach him. But it was all for naught. Everything in front of him flashed as he felt an agony like that of his head exploding. It was a memory he had no recollection of. It seemed like it was a memory of just before Watasi had lost his memories. And the thing that had scared Watasi so much back then, was this boy right in front of him? No way. There's no way that's true. Watasi shook his head to dismiss that delusion. Anyway, I gotta find him to get him to a safe place. Watasi put the pistol in his breast pocket, then lifted Natsuhiko's body up into his arms. But just then, Watasi felt a presence behind him. He turned around and then saw it. Someone with a tiny frame was charging straight at him. In their hand was an axe. Just as Watasi realized that. The figure swung the axe down towards the crown of his head. Watasi strafed to the side to dodge the sudden swing. He desperately put distance between him and his attacker, then confirmed their identity. Standing there was none other than... Look, it's back! She's back! It was Salu. The girl had run away from him twice now. A light as cold as ice shimmered at the depths of her eyes. Gripped in her hand was a burnt axe. That's the axe from that rescue worker. It was the one that had been clutched in the hands of his deceased co-worker Hayama. The one that had mysteriously disappeared later on. Watasi had been wondering this whole time who had taken it, and now, well, now we know. Salu ignored Watasi's question. He charged straight at him again. She was aiming for Watasi's neck. He barely leaned back in time, leaving the axe to slice only through air. The weight of the weapon was throwing her around, causing her to stray forward heavily. Now! He immediately grabbed for Salu, but she swung her leg up a second earlier. She made use of her centrifugal force to launch a swift kick connecting solidly with his temple. Watasi's brain rattled and his vision grew dark. Despite that, he still managed to quickly thrust Salu away. He then jumped back and put some distance between them again. He was greeted with a cold look on Salu's face when his sight came back. What's she doing? She attacked without the slightest hesitation, using battle techniques that didn't befit a girl of her size and age. Worse, Watasi's headaches and convulsions were only getting stronger. It was likely he'd die for real if he fought in this condition. Watasi hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should take out the pistol in his breast pocket. Now what am I thinking? I can't hurt someone else to protect myself. Just as he thought that, he noticed that Salu's body was faintly trembling. She was convulsing the same way that Watasi had been for a while now.
Oi, 君もまさかこの頭痛を感じてるのか? だったらさっさとここから逃げろ。自分の身を危険にさらしてまで俺と戦って何になる?
Salu suddenly stopped in what appeared to be surprise.
またそのセリフ。
Again.
また?
あなたは前回も私に同じことを言った。
なんだと?
Watasi's body froze with surprise and confusion. When was this last time? When did this girl and I... The moment of confusion left Watasi wide open. Salu charged at him yet again. Shit! I can't hold out next time, I'm done for! Watasi thought that his body moved on its own. Watasi then lowered his body as if he's putting himself into a crouch start for a 100-meter dash. He filled his legs with strength and released it all at once and sprung at Salu. Her face was filled with shock. Watasi tackled her with the force of a bullet a second later, hitting her right in the waist. Oh my god. The axe slipped out of Salu's hand as she fell on her back. Watasi used his remaining momentum to straddle her. Watasi came to his senses, only to realize that he was pinning Salu down. What? The actions he'd taken just now had clearly been etched into him instinctively through training, but they were obviously not skills needed to save lives. Where did I ever pick up a skill like that? Salu glared up at him, her eyes seething like cold blue flames. Watasi shook off the chills running down his spine and tried reasoning with her.
どうして襲いかかってきたりしたんだ。頼む、教えてくれ。俺には訳がわからないんだ。
So his eyes moved just then. Her gaze was now focused on Natsuhiko.
もしかして俺が夏彦を襲ったと思ったのか。だとしたらそれは誤解だ。俺はさっき彼を医務室へ連れて行こうとしていたんだ。彼に危害を加えるつもりなんて俺にはないんだよ。
Salu then spoke in a near inaudible voice. Watasi brought his face closer to her to hear her better.
私でも見抜けるような見えすいた嘘はやめて。
Lies.
それはどういう。
Salu moved her right hand as fast as lightning before Watasi could finish. She poked him in the eyes, temporarily blinding him. Watasi felt Salu slipping her body out from under him at the same time. Crap, I've got to put some distance between us. Watasi had no way of dodging any axe swings at this time. Shit. Watasi blindly stretched out his hands in the darkness. His left hand came into contact with something. It was a sensation of cloth, a sleeve. Watasi grabbed onto it and focused solely on pulling it towards him. Salu's gasp echoed through the darkness. Watasi kept clutching onto her with his left hand while his right hand remained free. I have to defeat her right here and now. Watasi's body, spurred on by his ever-growing fear, filled with fierce strength. He reluctantly clenched his hand into a fist so that he could knock her unconscious when...
やめろ！彼女を傷つけるな！
The auditory hallucination showed up again. Watasi came back to his senses and opened his raised fist. He then slipped behind Salu and locked her into a chokehold. Salu struggled. Watasi's vision hadn't returned yet. Sorry about this. Watasi mentally apologized to Salu as he applied pressure to her thin neck, all while being careful not to squeeze it too hard. All the strength in her body soon faded away. Watasi let out a great big sigh once he confirmed this, then loosened his grip. His sight soon came back. He could see Salu was passed out cold in his grip. That was too close. She really did want to kill me. But anyway, what can I do for her now? His head and skin still hurt like hell. His convulsions also hadn't let up. He didn't know why, but his instincts were screaming that it was too dangerous for him to stay here for too long.
二人をここから出してやらなければ。
Watasi carried Natsuhiko and Salu. They were heavy. Watasi's body truly was in poor shape, if they felt that way to him. He staggered out of area and along with Natsuhiko and Salu. He left through the same door he'd come through, and when he made his way out of the connecting passageway...
隊長?
Oh shit. Kazami?
よかった。ご無事だったんですね。
Oh thank God, she's not mad at us.
立花、お前どうしてここに。
Watasi was cautious of Kazami after what had transpired back in the surveillance room.
それは、隊長のことが心配で。
We got bigger problems now.
それで、監視カメラを見ていたら、隊長が N エリアに入っていくのが見えて。でも、これ、どういうことなんですか?
A long story. Kazami was looking at Natsuhiko and Salu with a shock.
夏彦とサリュだ。今は気を失っている。
この子たちに何が。
夏彦は N エリアに倒れていたんだ。サリュはおそらく N エリアに後から入ってきたんだと思う。
N エリアに倒れていたって。 N エリアには炎上する原子炉があるんじゃ。
Huh. What you don't know.
いや、俺にも訳がわからないんだが N エリアにはそんなものはなかったんだ。
The revelation left Kazami speechless. Otasi had figured she'd have a hard time believing that, so he handed her his level N card.
立花、聞くより見るのが早い。その目で確認してきてくれ。
Kazami nodded dubiously, then took the card and ran toward the area. About 30 seconds later, Kazami came back quickly and immediately started talking.
信じられません。まさかこんなことが。
Otasi nodded as he took the level N card back from him.
ああ、俺たちはどうも根本的なところで
Someone's been lying to us. Well, lots of people have been lying to us.
しかもあの機械、おそらく原子炉とは別の何かだと。
That's no reactor. It appeared Kazami also believed that the giant machine area N was no reactor. However,
立花、説明や議論は後だ。早いとこ夏彦を手当てしないとまずい。
we still need to find some AD. Kazami looked at Natsuhiko and nodded.
出血がひどいようですね。輸血が必要かと思われます。
Well, that's gonna be tricky.
じゃあ医務室に行こう。
Oh,
あそこには
okay.
血液パックも輸血キットも揃っていた。
That's good.
了解しました。一人は私が運びます。
できるか？足の傷が。
だいぶ回復しました。なんとかなります。
Good. Kazami pressed against the wound in her leg and carried Selyu.
しかし隊長、原子炉がないということは、この施設は一体。
That's what we need to figure out.
わからん。俺にはもう何もわからん。
Those words came straight from the bottom of Otasi's heart. What is this place? Alrighty guys, well now that we know the secret of Area N, more questions have popped up. What exactly is this place? Why have they been lying to us? You know, so many questions and no answers. Well, hopefully we'll get some more answers next time on Route Double. Take it easy everybody.